This is Ben Taylor, calling in from a secure location outside of West Point. If you need aid, I have a secure base with plenty of food and supplies. I'll be at Twiggy's in West Point at 1300 tomorrow, and each day after that. Meet me there. Please. It'll be nice just to see a friendly face at this point. What's the point? I know no one's coming. I mean, I don't blame you, really. I wouldn't trust a stranger over the radio either. I guess I'll tell you my story. I've got nothing better to do at this point. Originally, there were 5 of us. As soon as the news of the epidemic broke out, we used it as an excuse to bunk off school. Drove down to my old uncle's bunker. Always made sure it was full of beer and food. Not that it did much good for him in the end. The group consisted of Stephen, our unofficial leader. Strong, brave, charismatic. He was the whole package. A little too serious, but we'd follow him to the ends of the earth if he asked. Then there was DJ, or David. I'd known him since I was 5 years old, when we moved over from the UK. He was a right laugh, could handle his drink, and was trustworthy to a T. The sort of person you were glad to be stuck in a bunker with, really. Then there was Billy. Ah, sweet Billy. A few sandwiches short of a picnic, really. Never really knew what was going on half the time. Always the clown, loyal, could handle himself in a fight though. Then there was Kev. Not much of a talker, or a doer really. He kept to himself most of the time. But we enjoyed his company, and he enjoyed ours. He was the brains in our group. He only ever spoke when something needed to be said, but he always knew just what to say when the time was right. The 5 of us settled in, drinking, and generally having a good time. We assumed we'd only be there for a few days. How wrong we were. The bunker was pretty spacious, had its own utility room, outside rooftop with secure garden with water collectors, bathroom with shower and bath, and a bedroom with 4 beds. I opted to sleep on the sofa. I found it more comfortable sleeping alone. The TV kept us up to date with the disease and how it was progressing, and although it seemed bad, at this point we weren't really worried. We entertained ourselves with drinking and board games. My uncle thankfully had a large stash from when I used to come here as a boy. We had a laugh. I did miss Jenny though, my girlfriend. She was stuck at her parents' house in Louisville. They wouldn't let her leave, scared of the outbreak. I was annoyed at the time, but I hope, somehow at least, they managed to make it out before it all kicked off. A few days in, Stephen said he was going out for a run to find some cigs. We didn't think anything of it. The TV told us the disease was contained. Everything should have been okay. But when he didn't come back that night, the TV warned us of the dangers, telling us to stay in our homes. We knew in the pits of our stomach something was wrong. It wasn't like him to just up and disappear. So we got together as a group and searched the nearby woods. It wasn't long before I found him, or what used to be him anyway. I still remember him stumbling slowly towards me. I pushed him to the ground, not letting him up. I looked into his cold, dead eyes, the blood over his face, the bite mark on his hand. It said it all. It was clear this was the disease the TV had talked about. Our childhood leader, a moaning heap of rotting flesh. I didn't know what to do, but I couldn't leave him like this. He was frothing at the mouth, snapping at my ankles. I still remember the feeling, my heel crunching into his skull. Honestly, I'm still not sure if I meant to kill him. It was almost instinctual. If I didn't, I knew he would have killed me. In hindsight, I'm just thankful he went quickly. But I lied to the others. I said I found him dead. We didn't know what to do with him though. We didn't know how his disease spread, and so we just left him there. I still regret that to this day. I had blood on my hands. No amount of cleaning would get rid of it. I found myself glued to the TV for the next few days, trying to come to terms with what I'd done, trying to find justification for it. I wish I'd packed more clothes. Having to sit in that same outfit that I'd killed Stephen in, days and days, made me feel sick to my stomach. It was clear from the news the situation was dire. It was like hell on earth out there. Louisville seemed the worst hit of them all. I prayed for Jenny, hoping that she'd made it out okay. But the more we tried to learn about this disease from the so-called experts, the more it was clear the situation wouldn't improve. We had to take matters into our own hands. Whilst we were warned over the next few days to stay inside, prepare for the coming apocalypse, we decided to arm ourselves and raid the nearest convenience store, hoping, naively, that we would be able to get enough supplies to wait out this disease. But the body of the bearded man outside our bunker showed it was already too late. We drove as quickly as we could, but we'd only been travelling a few minutes before we saw chaos firsthand. Infected shambling along, the crashed cars in the middle of the road. We saw the infected feasting on the dead. As soon as we saw this, we knew they weren't human anymore. They didn't deserve sympathy. After arriving at the local store, there were way more of these infected than I expected. They were everywhere. It wasn't safe. We decided to press on. After travelling for a while, we found somewhere we thought was relatively safe. Only a handful of these diseased, and we thought we could avoid them. We got out the car and made our way to the store. But the doors were locked, and the diseased slowly lumbering towards us. It was clear this wasn't going to be easy. I asked the others to distract them while I jumped through the side window. I managed to get in, but I had one of them following me. I dispatched it, steeling my mind to the horrors. I grabbed everything I could from the shelves before jumping back out the window. But the situation was now dire. They were everywhere. I quickly jumped in the van, calling to the guys to get in. I drove around the parking lot. DJ and Billy got in quickly, but Kev wasn't there. We called out for him, circled round and round the parking lot, hoping that we'd be able to see him. But he was gone. We waited as long as we could, but eventually we had to leave, with hearts in our throats.
Look, he might have made
praying
it.
that somehow
You never know, right?
he'd be able to make his way back to the bunker. But we all knew he was dead. He didn't have the strength or the stamina to deal with something like this. On the way back, I didn't avoid the disease, these undead. In anger, I actually ran a few of them over, furious that this disease had taken not one, but two of my friends now. And what did we have to show for it? Some sweets, chips, peanut butter? Was it really worth our friends' lives? Stephen would have talked us out of it. Without him, we were lost. Physically, we all got back to the bunker in one piece, but I think mentally, I never really came back. I remember being sick, the smell of those festering corpses, and the stress of it all just was too much. I lay in the shower, what felt like days. I couldn't even bring myself to wash the grime off my body. I was broken. Over the next week, I became ingrained in the sofa, unable to move, just following the destruction on the TV, wallowing in guilt and self-pity. Sick to my stomach, though I would never see my parents, my uncle, Jenny, ever again. I regret never saying how much I loved them. Whilst I lay there, Billy and DJ were more pragmatic, searching the nearby houses for more supplies, keeping the bunker safe and securing the area, killing any of the undead that got too close. That night, Billy got a fever, and the next morning when DJ went to check on him, all he could hear was the moans of an undead. He had turned. We didn't know how. Supposedly he never got injured. The DJ didn't have a choice and put him down right there on the bedroom floor. We buried Billy near the bunker, as well as the bearded man, the remains of what we hoped was David, and an empty grave for Kev. Whilst I was finally brought round to my senses, DJ felt unbearable guilt about killing Billy. I knew exactly what he was going through, and I knew to give him space. With the two of us, the bunker was quiet except the telly. But when the power finally turned off, the bunker was eerily silent. I found myself missing the awful humming of those crappy overhead lights. We had no idea what to do. I buried myself in reading by torchlight, hoping and praying I could learn enough to survive. Whilst David was racked with guilt, I set off for the first time since we went to the store, and I took all my anger and frustration out on those undead around me. I had nothing to lose at this point. I pulled out my uncle's gun and started shooting blindly at them, but the noise attracted more and more, and soon the horde became too much for me to handle. I panicked, running into the nearby garage, finding a dead end, and after weaving through the horde, I managed to get into the house, made it into the kitchen. But that's where they broke through the window, throwing themselves through to get me. I took them out with my baseball bat, bashing their skulls in one by one. I took everything I could grab, but they finally broke in. Whilst the undead swarmed into the house, I made my way back to the side window I got into the house through, and after jumping through I managed to get back to the car and escape back to the safety of the bunker in a now battered van. The next trip out, a few weeks later, I found a car with a roof rack. It was clearly a fixer-upper, but I had nothing better to do at this point, and I thought learning how to fix up a car would distract me from everything else going on in the world. The next loot run I managed to find a working generator, and after hooking it up and fueling it, the bunker had power once again. The electrical hum, music to my ears. But a few weeks later, after returning from one particular trip, the bunker was quieter than usual. I looked round, but there was no sign of David anywhere. In the utility room, next to the ham radio we found, there was a notepad with writing on. David was gone. He said he was racked with guilt, couldn't stay, haunted by the ghosts of our dead friends. He said he had to find his own way through his grief. I was dumbstruck, angry that he couldn't tell me face to face, distraught that my best friend had left me, scared that I was on my own. I decided to keep myself busy over the next year, looting, crafting, collecting, honing my skills, even took apart the broken down car and fixed it back up. I was proud of that at least. But all the while, I called out on the ham radio each and every day, trying to find other survivors like me, just looking for someone to share this empty world with. I kept myself entertained as best I could, but some days it was too much. Some days I thought about ending it all. Well, I persevered. And that's my story. It's not pretty, but, well, it's the truth. So, if there's anybody out there who needs help, or just wants to see a friendly face, I'll see you at Twiggy's at 1300 tomorrow. I pray I'll see someone there this time. This is Ben Taylor, calling in from a secure location outside of West Point. If you need aid, I have a secure base with plenty of food,